Okay, good day, Knicks Nation. Today is a day that we need to take a step back, take a deep breath, okay? And just let's think about this thing rationally. So apparently, yesterday, it was all over the New York Knicks sport world that this is what it said. The New York Knicks are preparing an initial trade package offer for Chris Paul. That's what the report was. The New York Knicks are preparing an initial trade package offer for Chris Paul. And the reports that we saw said that this package included Julius Randle and Kevin Knox, and no picks were mentioned. Okay? First of all, let's step back for a second and please watch the whole video before you start commenting. Okay, let's step back for a second. First of all, let's just look at the Knicks situation. We talked about this before. The Knicks' strongest point they have right now is cap space. Okay. The thing that the Knicks are doing right now is rebuilding. In fact, one of the rumors that I saw stated that, and this was a quotation from back in May, that Knicks management was looking to get a veteran point guard to, quote, jumpstart the rebuild. Jumpstart the rebuild. Now that's important. That's very important. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, cap space. The Knicks have cap space. There's two ways a rebuilding team can use their cap space. Okay. Number one is to take on bad contracts in exchange for draft picks, because a rebuilding team needs as many draft picks as possible. Okay? So the first way they're going to use their cap space is to take on somebody else's bad contract in exchange for draft picks. All right. The second thing is to use the cap space to perhaps obtain pieces that will help jumpstart your rebuild by bringing in players that are going to complement the players that you're developing. Okay? To bring in players that are going to complement the players that you're developing. All right? Those are the two ways you use cap space if you're a rebuilding team. Okay? Now, if you're already rebuilt and you're already 6 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed, and you're one player away from being the top seed or going into the championship conversation, then you use your cap space to get a superstar. Because then a superstar is looking at your team and saying, I might be that piece to get them over the top, like the Brooklyn Nets did with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant looked at the Brooklyn Nets. They had went from being bottom dwellers because of the bad deals they made in the past to turning D'Angelo Russell into an all-star and then becoming a playoff team. So that with the developed pieces, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, that the Nets had developed during their climb, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving figured we could be the pieces to put them over the top. So they came to Brooklyn instead of the Knicks. Okay? Just basic terms. Not talking about how punkish Kevin Durant is, but we're just dealing with this on the basic level. Okay. Now, we have a new president of operations, Leon Rose. We have a GM that's been there, Scott Perry. And we have some other players in this game involved, some other pieces. So you have Tom Thibodeau, You have Walt Perrin. You have some other people involved. Okay. Now, Tom Thibodeau's not the president like he was in Minnesota where he can make decisions, but you got to figure he's involved with this decision-making process. Now, we should assume a couple of things. We have to assume if we're Knicks fans, and I know this is going to be hard for us. We have to assume Leon Rose is not stupid. We have to make that assumption that he's not stupid. He's not Steve Mills. He's not Glenn Grunwald. He's not stupid. We have to assume also that James Dolan is not going to jump in and make a decision overriding everybody. We have to make this assumption because, first of all, we have to assume that Dolan has learned from the past. And being a Knicks fan, I have to make this assumption. Otherwise, this would not be good. And number two, Rose has made all the right decisions up until this point. He's made all the right decisions. Hired the right coach, got the right development team in place. He's done all the right things so far. So we have to assume he's not stupid. Okay. Now, that being the case, because first of all, before we even go into the deal with CP3, let's make some other understandings that we have. There are at least two other deals that we've already heard about that are better than this deal. Number one, we've all heard that Utah is interested in receiving Julius Randle in exchange for Mike Conley, who's on an expiring $35 million deal, and their first round pick. That would make sense. So if Utah is interested in that, we might do that because we're only using, of our $45 million in cap space, in that particular deal, we'd only be using $16 million and we'd still have $30 million in cap space or close to it. We'd still have $29 million in cap space. And we get another number one. I think their 21st pick or their 23rd pick, somewhere in that range. Okay. So that would make sense. And that, if that deal is out there, it's better than the Chris Paul deal that we're going to talk about in a second. Then there's also another route. Instead of taking on $85 million of 35-year-old Chris Paul's contract, okay, instead of taking on $85 million of 35-year-old Chris Paul's contract, we already know. In fact, I was looking at some more Toronto news last night, and apparently the Raptors understand that the Knicks are the biggest threat, they said, to Fred VanVleet. And there's only, aside from Toronto itself, there is only 3 other teams with the cap space to talk to Fred VanVleet. Only 3. That's us, the Knicks, Detroit, and Atlanta. Phoenix is interested, but they have to create cap space by removing Kelly Oubre, which also opens up other opportunities for us. So assuming that that's the case, it's really, and then Atlanta already has a point guard. They don't need Fred VanVleet. They need other pieces. So assuming that's the case, it's really us and Detroit that have the money or will have the money to talk to Fred VanVleet, even talk to him. Okay. And if we wanted to overpay, we can decide instead of paying $85 million to 35-year-old Chris Paul, we can go ahead and pay $25 million a year or $100 million for 26-year-old Fred VanVleet. And end the conversation of point guard search for the next 4 years. We can go 4 years, $100 million, done. Okay, we can do that. Okay, now Toronto could match, but we could put that out there. And the market price for Fred VanVleet is going to be around $20 million a year because everyone knows he's going to get a similar deal that Brogdon got. So if we go ahead and offer him 25, okay, now Toronto has to overpay for him. If we wanted a point guard, if we wanted to get a veteran point guard, that brings me to another point. One thing I have learned, I look back over Thibodeau's career, both in Chicago and Minnesota. Listen carefully. It is very apparent. Thibodeau does not like dealing with rookie point guards. He does not like to deal with rookie point guards. When he came to Chicago, Derrick Rose was in his 3rd year and had already established himself as a high-level scorer, okay? And that 3rd year, he became the MVP, okay? So that's that. And then when he went to Minnesota, they had Chris Dunn they had just drafted him. And a year later, Thibodeau traded him and got two veterans. He got Derrick Rose and he got, Jeff Teague. He traded, and he also traded, Ricky Rubio, who wasn't a rookie, but I guess he didn't like him, but he traded the rookie point guard too. So one thing we know right now, you guys who want Killian Hayes and Kyra Lewis and LaMelo Ball, it ain't happening. Cause our boy Tibbs is not having a rookie point guard. I could tell you that right now. That's not happening. Okay. So that at 8, I like our chances of getting a Vassell or, Okoro, or then there's Obi, but that's another story. I could tell you right now, just based on what is going on now, that for them to be looking at point guards like this, he's not having a rookie point guard. All right. He's not doing it. All right. So now also we need to understand, like we already know as Knicks fans, rumors are going to abound all the way through until the trade deadline. Rumors are going to abound, and especially this year when we don't even know when the next season is beginning. We don't even know. Okay, my understanding is the NBA is trying to wait for a date where the coast is clear and they can get people. They don't want to do a bubble for the regular season. They want people going into the arenas because they're losing money. Okay. So they're trying to get a date where everybody can come back to the arenas and pay the money and come see their teams play instead of having a location like they do now with the bubble. Okay. So these are reasons for us to stay calm with this situation. Now let's talk about it. First off, they're talking about Kevin Knox. We all know it's been commonly reported. Like when the Knicks in last June put out through Ian Begley that they are looking for a stretch 4. And even Fizdale said that. Fizdale said they need a stretch 4. That's already telling Julius Randle, you're not going to be the starting 4 on this team anymore. You're not. Okay. So we can know right now they're going to deal Julius Randle. And then we also heard that it's their number one priority to move Julius Randle. So, yeah. That's going to be a done deal. So for all you thinking that, that Kenny Payne can help Julius Randle, maybe he can help. No, he's gone. He's going to be gone. All right. So that's out. So now with CP3, they're dangling Kevin Knox, which means also they might be ready to give up on Kevin Knox. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Kevin Knox is just turning 21 years old and just finishing his second year after 2 horrible years under terrible development in a horrible organization. You can't blame the kid for that. Okay? Now, being that Leon Rose isn't stupid, let's assume if they're trading Kevin Knox with Julius Randle for CP3, they're taking Oklahoma City's first round pick, which I think is number 21. Let's assume that. So if they get Chris Paul in here, we're going to have another pick. We're going to have our 8, our 27, our 38, and either, whichever it is. I get confused between them and Utah. It's either 21 or 23. We're going to have one of those picks. We're going to assume that. Cause I'm going to assume Leon Rose is not stupid. So if he does that, we're going to have Chris Paul starting at the point, veteran point guard. He's probably going to have Frank next to him with RJ, and then you're going to have Mitch, and then whoever. Now, this becomes also important because if we trade Chris Paul with Kevin, okay, between Julius Randle and Kevin Knox, that's $23 million. That's going to be going out. 23 million going out to OKC, and we're taking back 41 million, which uses 18 million of our cap space. And again, we'd have about $27 million left. Okay. We also have it's like a $3.7 million trade exception. I'm going to assume they're going to use that trade exception to pay the $1 million that are going to be due on the guys they're going to let go. Like they would owe Peyton $1 million, Ellington $1 million, And, okay, they would owe those guys each $1 million. Peyton, Ellington, and, one other guy, they would owe $1 million each by not exercising their option. And they'll probably use the trade exception to deal with that. So we have $27 million. We're going to assume if they have Chris Paul as the point guard in that scenario, they're probably going to get a stretch four, a real stretch four, which to me means only two guys, Gallinari or Davis Bertans. There's the only two. And we're going to probably throw 20 million. I can see a 2-year deal, 40 million, 20 million each, for one of those two guys. So you have Chris Paul, let's call it Danilo Gallinari, who just played with Chris Paul. So that makes sense. And then we'd be giving him money he's not going to get anywhere else. So then there's going to be Danilo Gallinari, Chris Paul, Richard Robinson, RJ Barrett, Frank Ntilikina. That's what you're going to have. Okay. And I don't mind that for 2 years, because then you're going to, at that point, they're probably going to get another veteran point guard like a DJ Augustine, which they can afford with the $7 million they have left, or somebody to back up Chris Paul and over the next 2 years and help our team develop that way. Okay. But I'm going to assume this is not going to happen. I'm going to assume it's not going to happen because, like I said, the Utah deal is better because you only got Mike Conley for 1 year. It's an expiring deal. And then you're going to get Utah's first round pick, and you're not going to have to give up Kevin Knox. You're going to still have Kevin Knox in that scenario, and you can still get a stretch four in that scenario. You're not going to have Kevin Knox. But this is, to me, a strong indication. The Knicks are not picking a point guard at 8. They're not going to do that. And I'm kind of glad at that because, I didn't like the idea anyway. I don't like any of these point guards. None of them is worth moving up for sure. None of them, to me. I don't like LaMelo, high bust potential. Killian Hayes, I like Killian Hayes. He's going to take 3 years to be ready to play in the league. 3 years. And y'all ain't even waiting for Kevin Knox 2 years. And you going to wait for Killian Hayes 3 years? Really? Okay. And Kyra Lewis, as fast as the young boy is, he's light in the behind. Okay. We don't know if he can take an 82 game schedule. We don't know it. Okay. I actually like a more solid option that we can get later in the first round or even in the second round, Trey Jones. Solid backup. We can groom him. If we take Conley or if we take on CP3, we can groom Trey Jones. Okay. I have no problem with that. Okay. Then Fred VanVleet. I'd rather, if you're going to look at these old guys, I'd rather get Fred VanVleet. Tell me what you think. I'd rather if we're going to look at old dudes like, Chris, Paul and Conley, why don't we just go ahead and get Fred VanVleet, put that 25 million toward him and solve the problem for the next 4 years, and he's going to be in our timeline? Why don't we just do that? I don't understand, but I'm going to assume Leon Rose is not stupid, and the Knicks are you get the best deal, right? Forget this stuff about him and CP3 being so close. Leon Rose is president of the New York Knicks. He's got to do what's best for the New York Knicks, not what his heart's desire is. Like all this stuff about him wanting, Chris Paul for when Houston was trading him, and then, the Knicks management was saying no. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But dude better do what's good for the team, for our team. Okay? Not for his boy. Now, that brings us to Chris Paul. One last thing. Chris Paul has no say in where he goes. He has no say. All he's got to do is find out what uniform he's putting on so he can get that 85 million over the next 2 years. That's all his situation is. All right. He might want to go to a winner. He might want to go to Milwaukee or to LA, but it's not up to him. It's up to OKC. And OKC going to do what's best for them. Like we should be doing what's best for us. And if the Knicks are stupid enough to send picks to OKC, of course they're going to do the deal with the Knicks. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? That'd be because we'd be the crackheads again. Emptying our pockets for a 35-year-old point guard. I hope that's wrong. I'm going to again assume Leon Rose is not stupid. So I'm going to call garbage on this. I'm going to think this is not going to happen, unless we're getting a first rounder from Oklahoma City. This is not going to happen. We're not going to do this. I can see us getting Mike Conley, or signing Fred VanVleet. And we still have Julius Randle as a trade chip. I'm going to talk about, again, some more possibilities, on tomorrow's video, that I can see coming up, that might come up depending on the draft, how the draft, plays out. But, yeah. I'm going to say this is not going to happen. And if it does, we're going to get a draft pick and we'll deal with it then. But for now, I think there's a couple of better deals out there for us. I can understand now clearly they're not going to be drafting a rookie point guard because Tibbs apparently, from his history, he has no patience for 18, 19-year-old point guards that's going to try to run his team. Not going to happen. Tell me what y'all think. Shalom.